The Chicago Bears draft is officially complete, meaning it's time for Nick and I to recap who did the Bears pick, what do we like, what do we not like, what are we looking forward for over the next couple months, and maybe we'll assign a grade to each player. We'll get there though on this episode of Bear With Us. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bear With Us, a Chicago Bears podcast hosted by yours truly, Robert Schmitz, editor-in-chief of the Bears blog, right here alongside Nick Whalen of Football Guys, my co-host. And Nick, what do you think of draft grades? Because look, I get it. It's popular online to hate on draft grades. There's a purpose for them. I hate how they're done. You know what I mean?
Well, I honestly, because a lot of the time we don't know what's going to happen. This is basically like, what are my consensus grades? Who drafted, in the draft slot above what I have consensus grades and below? And that means that they're good or bad. And then 3 years from now, we just throw it all up and throw it in the trash because no one knows anything.
Right, especially because a lot of these draft grades that you see, like you're saying, they come off of consensus boards. And plenty of the people who are putting together those consensus boards, well, they didn't get to interview the players either, right? They have no idea whether Adonai Mitchell is going to bring his A game or not next year for the Colts.
Mhm.
They have no idea what's going on inside the mind of Michael Penix. I mean, for crying out loud, Nick, for all we know, okay, we should probably talk about Rome Odunze and Michael Penix in conjunction because
Oh, yeah.
that Penix pick is so funky. But without the
Mhm.
Penix pick, do you think the Bears get Rome in the first place?
So you want to start with that and not Caleb?
I mean, so do we might as well start with Caleb.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I thought we're going over. We'll get to it.
101. The
Oh,
Chicago Bears select Caleb Williams, quarterback out of the University of Southern Carolina. What did you think about the pick?
California.
California.
What are
Southern
you doing?
Carolina.
We're
Come on.
already airs. So, obviously Fields, Caleb, Drake May, people went on down the list. Um, with the whole decision, remember, like we had the whole
Mhm.
decision. I trusted polls the whole time. Obviously Caleb's a good player. Like that's something that we obviously saw. The one thing I've been more floored about that I've learned over the past probably month is Caleb the person. Because Caleb the person, I think, got more scrutiny than anything else over this whole process. And I learned a lot about him, man. Like from his interview to how he's wired to texting or calling all of the draft picks himself. He didn't have to do that, but he wanted to do that. He jumps into Rome's interview because he's excited about his new teammate. Like that's the guy you want in the locker room, the guy you want leading your team. And so like eh, the the vibes, you want to go to the how it feels is so much greater than I thought it would be, honestly. And that's all aside from on the field.
And I mean, Nick, on the field, the guy is outstanding.
Right.
In the
Yeah.
world of college football to NFL, it's funny, right? Because college football to me is kind of like an audition tape. It's not exactly the same as NFL football, especially when you talk about the quarterback position. So show us what you would be able to do if we put you in certain positions. And Caleb, the pocket passer, is drastically underrated at this point. Caleb, the offensive schemer, Caleb, the pocket mover, and then Caleb, the magician, Caleb, the creativity, Caleb's arm talent, all that we know. And I mean, I'm right there with you, Nick. When I look at Caleb Williams, it is wild to me, even as somebody who's been pretty on Caleb Williams since like 3 months ago. I did not expect the emotional outpour that we got from Caleb about how excited this uber talented quarterback looked
Mhm.
to be a Chicago Bear. He's got social media arguing over whether he invented the bear claw. That,
So
look,
dumb.
I feel like such a Johnny Raincloud, especially because, Nick, I look at it and I see a Baylor Sikkim that he saw
Mhm.
at Oklahoma in his freshman season
Right.
because that's what the Bears did, right? But hey, who
He
knows? Maybe
he
he feels like
you
he's
know
making something.
the best way I think just to describe him, Robert, is he's a problem solver. Like whatever problem the defense gives him, he can solve it with
Right.
a bigger toolbox than any draft prospect. Honestly, probably since Luck or even before that. Like he can do so many different things on the field that people can't do with arm angles and accuracy and awareness and just uh creativity. I mean, even trying some of the stuff that he tries
Mm-hmm.
that like okay, let's go back to this last season. The one of the worst games was okay, Fields against Minnesota, right?
Mm-hmm.
I dare Minnesota to crowd the line against Caleb Williams with these weapons. Like I dare you. Like
Right.
you like the same things that you could try to do before against the Bears, you can't do anymore.
I don't think so. Especially because, so you brought up Andrew Luck. I think Luck is a funny comparison for Caleb Williams because one of the things that I think made Luck so well regarded is that Jim Harbaugh had him playing, for all intents and purposes, a pro offense. So, uh,
Mhm.
so Andrew Luck hit the league very deep in his understanding of what professional football looked like. I would make the argument for as deep as Andrew Luck is, Caleb's talent is broad. He has running
Yes.
ability that is rare within quarterbacking. He's got the ability to make off-platform throws that are rare among quarterbacks. He's got a willingness to sit in the pocket that is rare, let alone among short quarterbacks, including all quarterbacks. Drake May didn't stay in the pocket at the rate that Caleb Williams did. We've
Mhm.
seen highlights of Caleb and only Caleb riding out 10 to 11 seconds at times in the pocket. How scary is that? For
Yeah.
the majority of you've coached quarterbacks. Do
Mhm.
quarterbacks like being in the pocket, Nick?
No.
So
Not
it
well, not that long because there's always like the play, it gets to a certain point and then everybody gets nervous. But the thing I like about Caleb, and actually I coach a quarterback right now remotely. He was all state last year. And he asked me about this. We literally went over this point. He bounces up and down and moves his feet. And he's like, that's what my coach wants me to do. And I said, I want you to be calm because when your feet are set in the pocket, that's when you can let go. You know what I mean? Because you always
right,
want as quick as I can make the decision, and rotate and come through. That's what I want to do. So by him being calm in the pocket like Caleb is, allows him a wider array of quicker passes to beat windows. Like
right.
everything is amazing, man.
And to me, it all demonstrates Caleb Williams' unique awareness that I haven't seen in a lot of quarterback prospects. Where most quarterbacks, I mean, to use the old, what is it, like a Madden 2006 vision cone? Do you know what I'm talking about? Where, like,
Man,
you're,
that takes me back,
I
man.
know, right? I'm really trying to bring you back. It was formative. I remember playing it at the dentist's office, if you can believe it.
At
But
the
so,
dentist's
in
office.
in that way, you've got some of these quarterbacks that they can see their first read, they've got a feel for their second read,
Yep.
and if their third read is across the field, then they will get there and they will read it, but they don't know what's going on there, right?
Mhm.
For
Mhm.
a quarterback, I think this goes underrated. To stay in the pocket for 8 to 9 to 10 seconds, because 5 seconds, 6 seconds is one thing. Once you get past that, your
Yep.
internal clock has definitely gone off. And if you have the awareness to ignore it, and you're right to do so, it shows you know what's going on with your protection. That's
Yep.
five guys to track, Nick. Like
Mhm.
four defenders and an entire defense. And if you actually are telling me Caleb knows all this, I mean, that means the film we're seeing is really, really good.
Mhm.
Add the leadership piece to this. Should we assign a grade? So this morning on DBB, I did not assign a grade to Caleb Williams because to
Mhm.
me, picking a quarterback that I think was the only real selection at number one doesn't warrant you a pat on the back so much as a collective understanding, Nick, that this is Ryan Pohl's legacy. This
Well,
is it right here, right?
here's no, it is his legacy. But let me ask you this question, Robert. When's the last time that a quarterback was truly the best player, overall player in the draft?
Probably, was it Luck? Luck
I mean,
might be the fairest spot we could look back at
like
that.
you could maybe try to debate maybe a Joe Burrow. I'm trying to remember who was in that class, but it
Patrick
takes a
Mahomes
long
is
time.
another honorable mention here,
Uh,
but you
Mahomes
could
went
argue.
11. You can't say that.
I was gonna say if you're talking prospects, then yeah,
Yeah.
Mahomes doesn't count there.
Right. So like for this one, I truly think that most people had Caleb as the top prospect. You could debate him or Harrison, maybe. But once you got closer to the draft and the talk of Harrison kind of died off a little bit, getting a quarterback as the best prospect, and not just like he's the best for this year, he's the best over so many years. It's tough to say this isn't an A plus pick.
I it that's part of why, to me, I almost don't want to grade it, because it was the only pick to me. There
Mm,
wasn't actually, you have to entertain a discussion. You have to ask the question: Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams versus JJ McCarthy, Caleb Williams versus Michael Penix, Caleb Williams versus Drake May.
mm.
But you ask the questions very quickly, because
Yeah.
as you immediately go through the process of divining who's the best quarterback, you landed the best player.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know, Nick. To me,
and
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
to me, this is a layup. And I'm down to
Yeah.
give Poles a pat on the back for a layup if we want to. I'm about to give him credit for a
Mhm.
layup in Rome Odunze. But
Okay.
when it comes to Caleb, to me, especially once he traded Justin Fields, this was so telegraphed
Yeah.
that I'm comfortable leaving it out of the grade while still obviously showing that he's a huge, important part of this draft class. And the Bears are, once again, lucky to have him.
Mhm. Yeah, so let's just go to Rome then. So the one thing that I wanted to talk about, and you have in terms of this Roman Penix, which you need to talk about both, is I mean, it's the talk of everything, and it should be just how wild the Michael Penix Jr. pick is. And I have to give you credit, Robert, because on our live, if you guys didn't check out our live draft, cast, whatever you would call it, I would check it out. It was fairly entertaining, and I gutted through it. I was on it longer than Robert.
You did
Everybody
a great job, Nick.
6 straight hours. No bathroom breaks. Okay, no food breaks. I made it through, but um, Atlanta 1 month ago gave Kirk Cousins $100 million guaranteed.
Hmm.
1 month ago, think about this. A month ago, or a little over, whatever. The Bears were like, who should we go with? Right? In terms of like, you already went through your draft protocols. You already checked out the film. You already have an idea of everything. How did Atlanta go and pay Cousins? But then the whole time they're like, you know what? That Michael Penix Jr. guy, I think we want to spend the 8th overall pick on him. And the only thing I can think of is the excuse that you gave, Robert, on our podcast or on the stream. Do you even remember?
Uh, I could think of a couple.
It was it was a smart answer. Okay.
Was it the tampering thing?
Yes, you said that the NFL made Atlanta pick Michael Penix due to tampering for Kirk Cousins, and that's the only thing that makes sense at this point.
So when I look at this pick, to me, I think of a classic example of overthinking it, right? And look, everybody's burying Atlanta. I really hate being part of the dog pile, Nick, if you know me at all. And it's just not my scene, right? But in this case, I don't know why Atlanta caved to what I imagine was a lot of pressure. The unspoken part about this, Nick, is that I'm pretty sure, knowing what we know now about Bo Nix going at 12, Michael Penix was going to be a top 15 pick. So all the people saying,
Yeah.
you could have gotten him in the third, you could have gotten him in the second. No, you couldn't have. Somebody was drafting him, because once you get him drafted at 8, it's very clear to me Atlanta felt pressure from 13, from probably 11, and a couple of these other spots. But man, you just signed Kirk Cousins to a huge deal. Michael Penix is going to be 26 before you ever see him on a football field.
If you think of the process here, Robert, okay. So they just signed Cousins, what, a month, 6 weeks ago, okay. 1 year ago, the new regime of the Giants went to the playoffs, right? And decided to give Daniel Jones not the same amount of money, but again, significant amount of money that's guaranteed money for I think up to 2.5 years. They at 6 could add JJ McCarthy or Michael Penix Jr. And that's after a terrible season by Daniel Jones, right? So they're
Right.
they're further in this process than Atlanta was. And even they decided, like, you know what? We got to try this for at least another year with Daniel Jones. Let's give him a weapon. Atlanta just signed Cousins, and they're like, nah, you know what? Let's go with the succession plan after him, even though we just signed him. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It's a pretty mind-boggling pick from Raheem Morris in particular. Terry Fontenot and Ryan Pace, they do weird things, right? Ryan Pace not telling his quarterback that we're drafting another quarterback. When's he done that before?
Yeah,
Right?
I
But
know.
all this, at the end of the day, Nick, we're a Bears podcast, which is part of
Mhm.
why I think we have to bring up Atlanta. Because
Right.
I said for months, if not weeks, that number 8 felt like the ultimate destination for Rome Odunze. I had told you multiple times I hadn't actually watched Rome closer than, yeah, okay, he's really good, before just moving on, because I didn't think the NFL would allow the Bears, under any circumstances, the opportunity to draft Rome Odunze. But because Atlanta took a quarterback, I can all but guarantee you they turned down any trade offer that was given to them.
Yeah.
I'm sure people actually did try to trade up. I
Mhm.
have nearly no doubt about that. I mean, it just makes too much sense that there'd be somebody trying to jump the Bears. Atlanta just wouldn't let him. And in so doing, the Bears basically drafted 8th. And because of that, I got to give Ryan Poles a massive amount of credit for taking the bird in the hand here, because
Mhm.
you still could have drafted Byron Murphy. I know you're laughing. I know you're laughing. You still could have drafted Jared Verse, and the Bears have done that in the past. Looked a gift horse in the mouth and said, well, we actually got so ready to draft a defender that I think we're just going to go through with it, right?
Mhm.
But Nick, look at the rest of the draft board. All those receivers were gone.
Mhm.
There was nobody left. There was no 50th pick at receiver. There wasn't. At that point, you're hoping for Roman Wilson, who ended up getting picked 84th, because Ricky Pearsall, gone in the first. Xavier Legette, gone in the first. Keon Coleman, first pick of the second. Lad
Okay.
McConkey, not far after.
So you're talking about 75. 75 would have been, see, afterwards, Jermaine Burton went 80. Roman Wilson, you just talked about. Jalen McMillan, Luke McCaffrey, Troy Franklin. So no, I'm with you, man. It just felt like such a gift, and you could tell in the press conference when the press talked about Atlanta's pick, and Poles kind of laughed and smirked like no one saw that coming. But that aside, I mean, Rome seemed. I mean, think of who else was there, right? You had Olu there, right? A
Yep.
potential left tackle. You had Brock Bowers, who I really liked. You liked Byron Murphy. It wasn't like there was nobody there,
Of
but
course.
it's rare. Again, the whole time, like I saw it, we're on the podcast, and I'm like, it's rare when the best player available is the player that the Bears take, because you're like, oh, that's the guy. And then they took him. It's just like, oh my gosh, everything feels so much more at ease right now. Like I talked about the vibes
Mm-hmm.
with Caleb. The vibes now is like you have the receiver with your rookie quarterback for 4 to 5 years. You have more safety in the offense, just easily moving down the field and scoring more points. Like it just everything aligns now, man. It feels
I
awesome.
agree. Let's talk about the receiver a little bit. What do you think
Sure.
about Odunze?
What? So you've watched more film now?
Yes, I've now
Good.
drank down like another 3.5 games,
Good.
so I'm
Yeah.
ready to spit if you
Yeah,
are.
yeah. So, I mean, so Rome, I mean, I'm roughly sizes, guys. I would say 6'3", probably 210, 215. Um, he I think he's a very good contested catch guy, but I think he's a good at a lot of things, great at nothing receiver. I think he's a good route runner. I don't think he's great. I think he's a good to very good overall athlete. I don't think he's great. I think he uses his releases solidly. I think he knows when to settle down into zones. I think that he can. He's a very good hands catcher. I think he doesn't body a whole lot. Like I said, contested things, he's good. He's good with, I think, awareness and the sideline and getting his feet down and kind of knowing where to be with spacing. The one I would say not good in his game, he's not very good after the reception. He's actually a better athlete, I would say, during his routes than he is after he catches the ball. He kind of becomes something a little bit different. He's not going to break a lot of tackles. I would probably say he's more like Alshon Jeffrey, but a better athlete is kind of a area to kind of think of Rome Odunze.
Well, like T. Higgins, but he can move kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're seeing the same thing I am, but to me, one of the things that has become obvious watching his Washington tape is he is not playing at the speed that I know he tested at. For a 4-4 person, we should be able to threaten the vertical a lot harder than we do in a lot of these games, where you see Rome coast down the field on a post route, and then he ultimately snags the ball away from a defender. I don't think that's bad. I wonder if Rome, a 22-year-old person, is a thoughtful player that isn't playing with the instinct that some of these other receivers, that's what they do. Malik Neighbors plays Malik Neighbors' game. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Marvin Harrison Jr. plays Marvin Harrison Jr.'s way. Lad McConkey plays Lad McConkey's way. And it makes me think that there is further that we can go here with Rome Odunze once we're able to get him comfy enough to just go out there and rip with some of your speed. Within that, though, Nick, like you're talking about, I see somebody who understands receiver technique at a very high level. He understands that when you're trying to run a slot fade, you need to sell a slant first, and you'll see that slant step before he pops out sideways. And in the Oregon game, it got him wide open a couple times.
Mhm.
I've seen Odunze consistently protect the ball when it's in the air, not only pulling down. It's one thing to talk about contested catches, Nick. I think
Mhm.
contested catches mean different things. If we're talking about a fade in the end zone, then yeah, it's great to see that you're more physical than the guy, right? But many of these plays downfield are underthrown or off target balls that Odunze is able to get himself under and, most importantly, fence the defensive back out of and ultimately make a
Yep.
clean, safe play on a ball down the field where
Mhm.
this feeling of safety begins to almost bubble out of the film.
Yes.
Difficult catches at the
Mhm.
exterior of his catch radius. He will pull in with soft hands as if they're just not a problem. And
Mhm.
I can't help watching Odunze thinking, as a wide receiver three, he can be an all role player that does just about everything within the offense
Mhm.
decently. I think
Yes.
there's more to extract out of his blocking if the Bears want to. But
Yeah, that's not good.
most importantly, I think he's somebody that you can trust when you throw to him. That sure, everybody's got their lack of concentration drops, but Odunze doesn't fight the football the way that a lot of receivers taken later in the draft do. He is very clean when he catches it. He's clean at pulling the ball away from corners when it comes to back shoulder balls. He's trustworthy when you put the ball in his general direction. And I mean, Nick, we didn't even mention this earlier. We're talking about a quarterback who didn't have an offensive lineman or a receiver drafted before the 7th round
Yep.
that is now going to be throwing to 2 first rounders in DJ Moore and Rome Odunze and a 6-time Pro Bowler in Keenan Allen, as well as a
Mhm.
second-rounder in Cole Kmet. I am very excited to see whatever these two will cook up because the relationship that they already seem to be building should ultimately become something on the football field. We'll have to wait and see what it is.
I wanna double check this so I don't have this incorrectly, but my favorite stat of Rome Odunze is, or I guess fact, right, which I'll turn into a stat. If I am correct. Okay, I just double checked it. September of last year, he recovered an onside kick. So again, September, y'all, like one of the first games of the year.
Mhm.
Recovered an onside kick and it broke a rib and punctured his lung. He did not miss a game. Now, know that, right?
Mhm.
Know how vital that is to, I don't know, breathing and every movement that you have because it's a core thing or getting hit. Okay. He led the entire FBS in receiving yards last year. Like putting those things together, like because again, didn't complain. He played. Like it's like, dang, like that's a tough dude. And that's something that not everybody can do. Where you can
Right.
go to that area where you're like, you know what? I got to be there for my team and try to get through that. Which I think we saw some with Caleb too. Because I was at the Notre Dame game. When they're down, he was still trying. When the game was out of hand, he didn't quit. So having those two mindsets together for 4 or 5 years or more, hopefully it's 10 years, would be quite outstanding. So I the other thing that I like when you talk about, okay, the trio of receivers, right?
Mhm.
Is Rome's the only one with big size, right? Because while Keenan has size, he's 6'2", he's not the jump ball catcher that Rome is, right? And he's more of your slot guy that I don't know how has that much lateral ability at 6'2". It's unreal. And then you have DJ, who's your more after the catch guy. Like you have someone that fits everything. And then your fourth is Tyler Scott, who's your speed guy. Like you have everything. And even if you want to have fun, Bayless Jones is your jet sweep, package player.
Your spare running back, your
But
gadget
that,
guy.
yeah, but that's literally everything that you want. Like if you could hand pick a whole group together, that's everything that you want in a group.
I agree. And not to mention, I really mean it when I say watching a Dunze's film, I think there's evidence of him feathering his own athleticism. I don't
Oh yeah.
know what to do with this, right?
After the reception, especially.
Well, at least after the reception, I couldn't tell you because it's funny, right? When you're running a basic over the middle of the field, a dig for anybody who doesn't speak extreme football. You need to be there at a certain time. You can get there too early because the moment you get there before the linebacker's been cleared out, you aren't open. You covered yourself, and now you have to
Mhm.
stand there. It's funny, Nick, because not every basic route needs to be run with the most jagged 90-degree break on earth. And Odunze won't do that because you talked about lateral agility. He doesn't have the best. I mean, in
No.
terms of dropping his hips and breaking inside or making really jagged curls back to the football, he is very technically sound. He knows how to drop his hips. And I do see him lose his footing often enough that it's
I do
clear
some.
that stopping at 6'4", 212 is difficult. And
But that
it's,
comes with the territory, y'all.
it's
Like
not to say he
Brian
can't
Thomas
do
had the
it.
same issue. DK Metcalf, same
Oh,
issue.
yeah.
Alshon and well, Marshall had he was a freak, but Alshon didn't
Marshall's
have that either. So yeah.
it's not abnormal. I don't want to make it
Mhm.
sound like Adunze's bad because of it. It's more like Odunze does what he does. And beyond that, another thing, when we're talking about deep throws downfield, you can outrun those really easily. If he knows his quarterback and he knows his quarterback has a specific spot he wants to release the ball in, and he's not trying to just dust the guy, then that might explain part of why when he's running downfield, he gets his inside positioning against the one high safety and he says, "All right, throw the ball. I'll go get it." It's not about trying to run past him for a touchdown and asking Michael Penix to make a throw that if it's under ends up picked off and taken 30 yards back the other way. I don't know. A lot of ifs and buts. And I understand that I'm being pretty optimistic here, Nick, but it's funny because as I watch Adunze, I don't I see flashes of burst on slot fades that you don't see on a lot of the other routes for varying reasons that have me wondering if you do get him into an NFL locker room and you give him a different role in the offense, will we see a little bit more of what we saw on the combine? I
Mhm.
wouldn't be surprised. But
Well,
even
well,
if you get the jack of all trades, heck of a player, man.
yeah. Well, one thing to that is maybe you'll see more from his game, especially in 2024, because he'll have a smaller snap share. So he can
Right?
have more burst when he's not out there every play for Washington. When they ran a pretty deep route tree, y'all, when you're like, hey, you know what? Keenan's going to be on this one with DJ, and then you can come in on this one and you can give it your all on this post and get the whole 4-4-5. So, yeah, that could be kind of cool. The other thing I thought was fun, okay, which is not on our show sheet. I'm just going to throw this out there. So the Bears drafted Rome Odunze, okay? And you saw this, y'all, back in 1999, okay? Robert, maybe you don't remember this, but
Oh no.
when when Minnesota took Randy Moss in 98 and he had his rookie year, the next year Green Bay drafted 3 corners the first 3 rounds because they were like, "Oh no, I don't know what we're gonna do." After the Bears got Odunze, again, this is after trading for Keenan Allen as well. The reaction from the North, okay, was and you could debate this, but Minnesota took a D end, Detroit took 2 straight corners, and the Packers took an awful lot of safeties. So I don't think that that's just coincidence where you're like, "Hey, we're gonna play the Bears twice. How are we gonna match up with these 3 receivers?" And this is a consequence of that. Teams are gonna try to match you now.
The Lions needed corners so badly.
Yep.
Green Bay also needed safeties so badly. So I'm not surprised about either of those picks. But like you're saying, it's an arms race. And if you're not in the arms race, you're behind. And
Yep.
so, as far as the grade goes on this pick, just so that we can hit it and move on, because we told ourselves we were going to be short, we aren't doing that very well so far. But I think that Roma Dunze is as clear and crisp an A as you're going to get. The only reason it's not an A plus is because it's hard to be truly scintillating about a pick that I kind of feel like was gifted to you and almost a little too obvious. Similar, though not the same, to Caleb Williams, right? Because we're talking about, Nick, a consensus top 6 player that's available at 9 for pretty goofy reasons. You know what I'm
But
saying?
but why is that not an A plus? It's the best player. You didn't trade up and waste draft capital to get
He
him,
didn't.
which Pohl said he wanted to do, and Ian was holding him back. Which, by the way, I would love to be in that war room when they're doing that. Pohl's like, "Oh man, I'm nervous," and underneath that suit is just so much sweat going
Oh my
on,
gosh.
and Ian's like, "Hey, I got you. Get another Coke or something. Like we're gonna be fine." Like it would have been fun to be there, but you get the guy. How could it not be an A plus?
I think
There's no better player.
there is no better player. You're getting the most. I'm gonna dock the. I'm gonna stick with my gut. I'm gonna stick with an A, and I'm gonna come up with a reason later.
All
To
right.
me, it
So
probably because it's a wide receiver, and there is some moderate risk to drafting a wide receiver in the top 10. We love Rome. When you take the player off of it and you look at it from just a positional value perspective, this is an incredibly important position, Nick. There's nobody on offense getting paid like receivers outside of the
yeah,
quarterback. So
yeah.
it's unequivocal that right now, I mean, in the world of it used to be pass rushers, pass blockers, and the passer. Now it's pass rushers, the passer, and the pass catcher. So this is an incredibly important position, and the cap flexibility that Odunze, if he hits even a percentage of his ceiling, gives the Bears is outstanding. There's
Mhm.
a little risk involved,
Yeah.
but we'll get there when we get there because
All right.
there's risk involved in any pick.
Yeah. All right. So I'll move on and I'll do the name again. Okay. So Kiran Amegadjie, okay, tackle, Yale. Yeah, we're bringing the smarts from the Ivy League to Chicago. The best story about him as an offensive tackle, for those that don't know, is he's from the Chicagoland area and he saw Eberflus at a golf course 1 year ago. And he went up to him and introduced himself and said, "Hey, coach, you guys are going to pick me next year." And I'm sure Eberflus is like, "Yeah, yeah, you know." And then later saw the film and stuff. But this is a very, very long tackle. I mean, 36-inch long arm length, which is longer than Braxton Jones. So it's kind of an ideal left tackle type of player. Very athletic. He's very good in terms of lateral ability as well. He is newer to football and newer to a lot of different techniques. So he's the perfect developmental backup swing tackle. I really, really like the pick and the process because you don't need to rush him in there. And he also has some interior playing experience, which is good for flexibility.
Man, it's such a great story with Eberflus in the golf course, but for
Mhm.
some reason, the story I connect with is the one that Karan had to scrub immediately off of his Twitter timeline when we find out that Kiran Amegadjie, current left tackle prospect for the Chicago Bears, was a Trubisky truther. He at one point wanted the entire Bears offensive line released. He then became a Fields truther, and
One
now
of us.
exactly.
One of
He
us.
gets to experience at the ground level exactly what all the rest of us are going through as
Uh-huh.
we look to Caleb Williams and say to ourselves, gosh, he feels different and get excited about a Bears era that I haven't actually dared to dream of this. To be honest with you, Nick,
I know.
the Bears team right now is becoming well set up enough that I can reasonably expect the playoffs from them in a rookie season. And normally it's more like, I hope our guy is a Hall of Famer so that he can bring our team up to everybody else's playing level. We
Mhm.
are at everybody else's playing level. If
Yep.
the quarterback brings them up, they're going to be sitting at the big boy table
You,
pretty
you know what?
soon.
You know what Adam Rink called it, and I had not thought of this, but it's not like the same old Bears. It's not like when we got Justin, we were excited, but the rest of the team sucked. Like we knew that,
Which is pretty
right?
normal for
This
when the
is
Bears draft a quarterback.
yeah,
Please save
or
us, Jay.
anyone.
Please save us, Jay. Please save us, Mitch. Please save us, Justin. We
Yeah,
go through it.
yep. But what he called it was he called it BC before Caleb.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
it kind of reminds you of a divide, right? And entering a whole new thing. So okay, so do you want to grade out Amagaji?
Yes. And
All
I'll
right.
also be that guy and say there is an element to the hype where it's like I want to try to use different words than I used for Trubisky and Caleb just because I do feel like it's different. I feel like it's
Mhm.
much more earnest. It's less built on hope and it's more built on this is what I see in the tape. He doesn't even have to take too many steps forward. He just needs to not take steps backwards. Like
Yep.
he needs to not regress in the NFL and then he should be all right. But when I look at Omagachi, what I see is so the thinking behind the pick. I really appreciate the fact that Ryan Poles looked at a team that needed defensive line help, watched two defensive linemen go before Amagachi, and said, offensive line is a great bet here. Offensive linemen out of the third round are consistently successful. We're going to take a tradesy offensive lineman with absolutely no intent to play him because if our line gets better in the future, that is going to matter to us.
Well, okay, hold on. Let me stop you though. It's Amagaji too. So
Amagachi, thank you.
yep. So okay, you took a tackle, which I understand makes
Right?
sense. You could do that. We did sign some backup linemen that could fill that swing role. I mean, not developmental, but I get it. You could have taken Jonah Ellis.
Sure.
You could have taken Adisa Isaac, You could
Sure.
have taken Jalex Hunt, who I like as well. You could have went D tackle Dwayne Carter. So you could have went other ways with that pick. Does that make
Totally.
it the most ideal pick for
I
Chicago?
personally think that when you look at almost all those guys you named, right? My favorite one in this case being Jonah Ellis, mostly because
Oh
he's
yeah.
the one I know the best.
Yeah.
We're talking about a situational edge rusher here. We're
Mhm.
not talking about a stand up defensive end that's going to play 3 downs and hammer against the run and also collect 9 sacks in the passing game. What
Yep.
I just mentioned is a first round player because when you want starting defensive ends, that's where you draft them. I mean,
Yep.
this is almost, Nick, a big picture, take the nameplate off discussion about where can you find value in the third round of the draft. Developmental offensive line. That's where you see a lot of success in the third and fourth rounds.
Yep.
I'm even going to throw the second round in there because it's
Mhm.
there too. When
Mhm.
you draft offensive linemen in these rounds, more often than not, you grab one of the most talented guys in the draft, and especially because the Bears don't have to force him into the roster, they can mold him as they choose. Value wise, this is all over the place. You've got some people that have you have Amegadjie. Am I getting it right?
Mhm.
You have Amegadjie in the 140 range. You have some people like Jacob Infante that have him in the 58-ish range. So as far as is he gonna be there at 7, or would he have been there past 75? I don't know. It's probably the biggest detractor from this pick because the player I do like. It's hard to find these traits just growing on trees. Planet theory wise, this guy is pretty rare in how
Yeah.
well he moves, how few bad habits he has, and the biggest problem he has is that he played in the FCS. So his competition range is only so large. And if you were with me years ago when we watched Alex Bars play in the second half of preseason games and look like a Hall of Famer, you know how easy it is to look great against not Miles Garrett. But
Yeah.
you have to block Miles Garrett in the league.
Yeah.
That's life. So
Mhm.
reps against Montez Sweat are going to go an awfully long way, but I love
Mhm.
the fact that he's got guard versatility, which is part of why, to me, Nick, the fit makes sense. I look at this and I see a team that needs an answer for what are we going to do with Braxton Jones, but they
Yep.
need that answer next year.
Mhm.
So
Or
you've got
or Darnell right shoulder
or
goes
Darnell
bad
right
again.
shoulder, but I don't want to talk about that one. I don't
Mhm.
want to address
Well, anything well,
that.
you know what's interesting too about so we're 3 picks in, we'll keep going, y'all, but 3 picks, right? These are all if you look at it, what the NFL pays, the money, these are premium positions. And
Exactly.
that's one thing I want to deviate, and I gotta talk negatively about the Packers draft just quickly, is you look at they went Jordan Morgan in round 1, which I get, but then they had a ton of picks. They had 2 seconds, they had multiple they had a ton of these middle round picks. They took a couple linebackers, a bunch of safeties, a running back, and then they went O-line again in like, I don't know, like round 6 or something. Like they took a lot of the lowest paid positions. And okay, why does that matter? Right? They needed those, which I get. But when you look at in terms of value for the NFL, and I saw this, someone did this. So in terms of like, think of like the second contract and what you'll get based off of if they play at a starter level, even in that rookie contract, what you'll save is you don't get the ROI, the return on investment if you invest in those positions. Again, 2 linebackers, 3 safeties, etc. Like you would here. If he hits and he's your left tackle and you let Braxton Jones walk, you save $15 million.
Especially if you get any better,
Right.
like
But
any better.
if you do okay, the second safety, right, which is where Green Bay took him, right? Again, we got Kevin Byard, a solid safety, and he's making what, 7 million a year,
Hmm.
8 million a year. So you're saving 6 or 7 million dollars. So that's where that I think is the part where I wonder where Poles and Cunningham, where they're like, you know what, we're going to hammer in on these big premium positions. Even last year, look, we went tackle, right? Like going through, and I think that might change it. Now, again, you talked situational pass rusher, they can make some money too. But I think that's where you
Sure.
could lean in liking this pick a little bit more because he could be a left tackle in the NFL.
Oh yeah, and I mean more than anything, I appreciate that Ryan Poles, when I look at Karan, I see Ryan Poles identifying a player that he thought was the best player available. And I appreciate that because
Mhm.
after we drafted Rome Odunze, after Ryan Poles drafted Rome Odunze, to me it signaled that the Bears were not focusing on 2024. They were looking long term. Yes, you needed a wide receiver 3. right? Of course you did. Could you have signed Tyler Boyd to play that wide receiver role or wide receiver three role or
Yep.
made some kind of smaller move? Probably. I mean, it's not that key a role until Keenan
Mhm.
Allen goes down, but having this opportunity for Caleb and Rome to grow together was something Ryan Poles did not want to pass on. I appreciate him for not doing it. It
Mhm.
sets the target to me squarely on 2025. And the moment you do that, Nick, you don't need a defensive lineman. You can find other solutions there.
Yeah,
The
maybe.
Bears
Yeah.
did later in the draft, but it's more to say that if you had your eye on Trice or the other defensive linemen that were picked just before the Bears were, then I appreciate Poles staying patient. I don't think they desperately needed one. I think that even had they picked Trice in the third round, it's not like you and I would look at the defensive line and call it Dunsky. We wouldn't look at it and say, they're good
Nope.
now, one of the
Nope.
best units in the league. And if we're not going to talk about it that way, then I appreciate that they added offensive line to the pipeline because both tackle and guard are premier positions right now. You
Well,
mentioned Braxton. What if he replaces Tevin Jenkins or Nate Davis? And I
mhm.
love Tevin Jenkins. That's not me coming after Tevin Jenkins. It's me saying we don't know what the Bears' plan for Jenkins is because I actually would have expected him to have signed an extension by now. So if at that point, Nick, you're saving another 14 to 15 million dollars
but
because you're able to play Karan there.
But let's go back. Okay, let's digress by about 30 minutes in this conversation. We talked about Caleb Williams, right? He likes to stay in the pocket longer than anybody. That means that offensive line matters more for Caleb Williams and makes it more dangerous, right? Than it would for Kirk Cousins. One, two, three, boom. You can get any tackle out there almost. If they get it out on time, they're not going to get hit. But when that play gets extended, that's when these guys with these long arms and athleticism can just bury defenders and keep them at bay and give your guy time to operate. That was the issue with Justin, right?
Yep.
He didn't have time. Now, when you keep investing in this position, which is something Ryan Pace never did, he never invested in quality linemen. And that's what you got here, which is awesome. Do you want to move to the next guy? Because this is going to be fun.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're talking about premium positions. So we draft 101 quarterback, premium position, 109 receiver, premium position, 375 O tackle, premium position, 4 122 punter, premium position. I'm kidding. The Tory Taylor pick has lit a fire under Bears social media. But
Mhm.
Nick, am I a homer if I really like it?
No, because well, hold on, you got credit, right? Because you wanted and called for it, and we have a bunch of stats here, y'all. Okay, so I think I'll go first, you'll go next, then I'll go, Robert, on
Do it.
this. So I I I did a little research on something, and Jonathan Wood, also a DBB guy, is countering it a little bit, which we'll go back and forth. It's not that serious, but Trenton Gill was terrible, y'all. Okay. And Robert will go through some numbers and tell you why, how bad he was. But in terms of so net yards per punt. Okay. So net is when you punt it and then they get a return, the difference between the punt yardage and the return yardage, right, gives you your net punt average. So this one study showed that 7.29 points over an entire season is what you gain from one more net yard per punt. And so I did a little study breaking down 2020 through 2023 of Tory Taylor, okay, the new Bears punter, versus Trenton Gill. Now, again, two of those years they were both in college. Two of those years, Gill was in the NFL. Does that change things? Do punt coverage units change this? Yes, all of that matters. This is just for fun to show you guys a little small snippet of how good Tory Taylor could be for Chicago. But the difference in net punt average over those 4 years, okay, times the 7.29 per 1 point, right, or per yard, would equate to 20.3 more points over a season. That's for each of those 4 years. That's not just 1 year. Like last year, if you just took the difference between Gill and Taylor, it was 6.4 yards. The net, 6.4 yards. That's every time there's a punt, you get 6.4 more yards. And you think of games, right? And let's say, and that would actually equate to 46 points last year. Think of how many games, the Cleveland game, the Detroit game, you add in a field goal more for those, a touchdown here or there, right? That's going to be a lot more wins. So let's just say it's small. Let's say it's a touchdown just this year. That's a very, very important pick with Tory Taylor.
Well, it's hard for me to take a look at the NFL, and one of the biggest differences between college football and the NFL is that you get a lot less drives in the NFL. There's way more running clock, and because of that, you end up with maybe 9 drives a game. Sometimes less, sometimes it's closer to 8. And so, within that, your starting field position can govern the outcome of these drives way more often than meets the eye. And it's funny because when you look at Tory Taylor, what I see, Nick, all right, so really hang with me. I am a person who takes himself seriously, and I'm going to say some things that are going to sound unserious, but they're real. If there was ever to be a generational punter, it's probably the guy that serious people like Dane Brugler are going to assign a 4th-round grade in the Beast. This is a guy who has broken an FBS punting yards record that held for 85 years, and he broke it this last year and obviously won the Ray Guy Award. This is a punter that is a primary reason, and that is not a joke, that Iowa won as many games as they did, because in many of these 3-0 and 10-7 slobber knockers, his ability to plant the ball inside the 5 turned into offense for Iowa, which is huge. And if you're telling me, Nick, that there's not going to come a game that nobody wants to think about, right? Okay, so I work in mortgage. That's what I do for a living. Everybody wants to talk about what's going to happen when rates drop, right? Nobody wants to talk about what happens when rates maybe go up, because we don't like to think of the bad thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is a game coming soon where the offense will be out of sync. It is being led by a rookie quarterback. One of its key players is a rookie wide receiver. Injuries happen. There's going to be games where the offense cannot get out of its own way. And in those games, the punter becomes key to the defense stealing it. The biggest problem I think the 2023 Bears had was not the biggest. One of the silent bigger problems on the Bears is that Trenton Gill was never a positive player for them in any scenario.
Nope.
If they were in a bad game script, Gill's punt stayed bad. If they were in a neutral game script, Gill's punt stayed neutral. They rarely pinned the opponent inside the 5, which can create all kinds of chaos and havoc for opposing offenses, but they also never flipped the field. So if Caleb had a ball, or if Justin Fields at the 25 after a touchback had the ball go over his head and dived on it at the 10, and then they handed it off, they ran a screen, they got back to the 15, Gill would line up on the end zone and he would punt it to the 40, and they would get a free field goal off of a couple yards because we weren't able to move it. You can't win a 16-14 game that way.
No.
But if you want to win 11 games, you're going to have to win one where the score is tightened down and your defense just has to make a couple plays. As much as I understand, it sounds ridiculous. You could really argue that a 4th for a punter, it's classically bad value. You can't stand for this. Tory Taylor might actually be different. And if nothing else, I'm really excited to see this punting superstar suit up in Bears colors. And if for no other reason than the memes and the fun factor, I'm super down for this pick. What about you?
Well, and there's actually a lot more to it than that. You could debate a 4th-round pick in most years is way too much for a punter. In this class, when it's down and we know it's down and everyone said it's down, a 4th-round pick might be, again, this wasn't an early first. This is a late 4th. Might be like an early 6th, if we're just being completely honest with ourselves. And again, back to Trenton Gill, y'all. He was 37th out of 37 in net punt average last year, dead last. He was tied for 4th in average punt return yards allowed, which is bad. Again, some of that's punt coverage, but some of that's you don't have the height or the direction. I mean, touchbacks tied for 4th. That's bad. Like all of these stats, Trenton Gill is bad. And one more thing, Robert, if we go into how this can affect games, there's a college football study out there. Again, college football, but still, it talks about how field position, how much it matters. Okay. If you win the field position battle, okay, at all, 0 to 3 yards, that's it. You win 54.1% of your games. 3 to 6 yards winning that battle, 59.8. Then it goes again, 6 to 10, 78, 10 to 15, 86 to 7. Just like you're talking about. You punt it, Bears get it at midfield. Let's go, right? He booms and pins them back. flips the field position. How many times have you seen a punter flip the field position on Chicago and then we can't do the same thing back?
A
This
lot.
changes everything. And plus, punting it, oh, it gets down inside the 5. Okay, with this defense, good luck, right?
Yeah.
We get the ball back. We get the ball back on our 40 even. That's a great in terms of we need to get 20, 25 yards and we get a field goal out of it. Like all those are going to flip games, y'all.
The Bears have Caleb Williams, a known playmaker and creative savant, we hope, but also somebody who is going to be dangerous with the football until the moment it's all out of his system. Why do you not want the punter that can take you from a negative position and return the game to neutral? Right? The aim here, Nick, being take the ball from the 10, punt it back to their 30, and with which would be a huge kick. But it's the kind of kick that Tory might be able to make. And then at that point, the defense is defending 70 yards of territory. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not that it's easy, it's that it's important. I mean, these are huge kicks that, like you're talking about. Games that I remember are when the Bears defense would sack, it was Jared Goff at the time when we were playing the Rams, and they'd be pinned in their territory. Johnny Hecker would nail the ball, and suddenly Mitch Trubisky, instead of getting to start from the 50, was starting from his 20.
Mhm.
What's different? Like,
Yep. Yep.
nothing about
And
that's any new.
and then the other thing too, okay, at 122, you took Tory Taylor. The other guys you could have taken here would have been, I mean, Kate Stover, Malik Mustafa, um, who else here? TJ Tampa, Jaden Hicks. Like some of these are decent guys. Nehemiah Pritchard, decent guys. Not a great guy. The best guy available that people wanted was Austin Booker. And wait, hold on. The Bears traded up, Robert. Okay.
Right?
And they traded a fourth to the Buffalo for the pick that they traded away for Ryan Bates. So again, gal, I mean, okay, stay with me. Basically, now they traded a fourth for Ryan Bates for the pick that was originally Chicago's to get Austin Booker. Okay. Defensive end, Kansas. Kind of an interesting story. Started in Minnesota and redshirted, didn't get a lot of playing time. Like honestly, hardly any playing time. Went to Kansas, had I would say a solid year, Big 12 newcomer of the year, first team all Big 12 in terms of he got 8 sacks. Was basically mainly like a pass rush specialist. He played some, but he only had what 500 snaps or so in college, 505 actually, and long limbs. I would say uh, average athlete for pass rusher, maybe below Robert. That's why he fell a little bit. But Dane Brugler had him above Braylon Trice, who's where we got sniped in round 3. So
Right.
I I didn't know that Booker was going to be on the Bears board, if I was being honest with you, because I saw the athleticism wasn't great with Raz. I saw the lack of experience. And honestly, at the combine, he weighed 240 pounds. Now he bulked up to 253 at his pro day. And I thought that would have scared them off. But he's 21, he's raw. And I compared him to Dominique Robinson. And people didn't like that. But I'm like, a raw guy who's thin, who's an athlete trying to figure it out with long arms. It's kind of the same dude.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, this is very similar when I look at the thinking, the value, the player, the fit, right? To when we were talking about Kiran just earlier. Having a developmental defensive lineman is awesome. Do
Mhm.
I love I look back at Tory and I see the Bears filling an unironic major need. You are going to punt the football. It is an inevitability. And Trenton Gill was so bad that, yeah, you could push yourself to average. But the idea that you would go out there and try to get the unironically, Nick, I imagine that in that draft board, or draft room, they're saying to themselves, "We just tried to draft the punting version of Justin Tuck, like, or just Tucker, I should say." And if they did, sweet. Will it return common fourth round pick value, dude? I don't know, but it may very well help them win a Super Bowl because just this last Super Bowl, Mahomes punted plenty of times in
Yeah.
the Ravens game. They punted plenty of times.
Mhm.
You do still want a defensive lineman in your pipeline. So I
Mhm.
don't mind the Bears giving away a 2025 fourth rounder so that they can add a tradesy guy like Booker that if he becomes anything, good. And if he doesn't become anything, oh well. I mean,
Yep.
what I don't like are the fans that are looking at people like Booker as an answer to anything. If he
No.
is, it will immediately be a triple pick at a minimum if you're talking baseball, right? It is a minimum triple if he is a rookie contributor in a meaningful way. and in a positive, Nick. Like at that point, wow.
He
Where
he he should not get a lot of snaps his rookie year.
no. And if he does, I hope he's a spark plug. But I bet he's gonna have trouble getting around the left tackles, the likes of gosh, think about guys on the schedule. Like you gotta beat obviously you have to beat Decker, you have to beat Darisaw at that point. I have no idea which side they're gonna play him in. He may have to beat Zach Tom. Like Penei Sewell could be on the menu. These are tough
Mhm.
guys to win
Yep.
against in the
Mhm.
NFL. But I love the fact that now you've got trench depth that if it does become something, good. If it doesn't become something, oh well. But you're not
Mhm.
betting on UDFAs like Ladarius Mack or gosh, who was the guy from a long time ago? I can't remember his name. Picked in the fifth or sixth. It's Kylie Fitz. Like we've been there where depth is so bad. We're converting
Yep.
defensive linemen to play offensive line so that we can have somebody behind our guys. It
Mhm.
sure seems to me like Ryan Poles is taking a look at all of this, sans the punter, and adding players at key positions. And
Yes.
frankly, the moment you open it up to a key position, you open the door back up to punter because it's hard to play bend, don't break, defense focused football without a good punter. And there are going to be people that hate that. They're going to say,
Mhm.
Robert, you're being way too conservative minded. And you got to know who our coach is. If we're going to play that style of ball anyways, even just now and again, Nick, then you need the pieces that make that
Mhm.
work. And it's hard to play field position focused football without a weapon at your key field position
Mhm.
outside of quarterback. I don't know.
Well,
Soapbox over.
but a couple things here. So one is bringing it back to Booker. So I thought they were done, but I'm a junkie, y'all. I'm still watching the draft, right? The Bears don't have any picks. I figured, okay, nothing, but I'll still watch this, right? Then all of a sudden I see him on the clock. I'm like, oh, okay. You look at who is best available. Now, again, I wasn't crazy about Austin Booker, even from what I saw on film. He had a really good Senior Bowl, which was good 'cause Chicago was there. But I was like, okay, like that's the best defensive end. Where I was going through it, I'm like, man, who else could they get? Maybe Brennan Jackson, he might fit. Mo Kamara, short arms. I already talked about how I don't think he's a fit. And the Bears took the best defensive end available. I was like, okay, that's twice now, right? They took the best guy available. I'm like, okay, Poles, I see you because
I see you.
again, the consensus, like again, it is what it is. Like everyone has their own opinion, but actually going off the consensus board does pay better dividends over time than going out on limbs, right? And most time reaches don't really pay off. And then the other thing is, you talked about this, Robert, getting, you know, Quran, getting, Austin Booker here, doing these things at premium positions for 2025, 2026, 2027 is what smart teams do. You're like, hey, man, I wish we had a pass rusher. Hey, hold on. How about this guy that's been developing for 3 years? Now he's
Exactly.
ready. Now he's ready to rotate in. How about we have an injury on the offensive line? Hey, this guy, he knows the offense. He's been working with all our guys. He knows everything. He's ready to go in 2 years.
I mean, think about it. I understand I'm about to talk about a second round pick, but Devontae Adams at one point was a solid receiver that was hanging around in Green Bay until suddenly we all looked around and said, when did this guy become one of the best receivers in football? Right?
Mhm.
I don't remember the seminal moment. Do you? I don't remember the moment he was drafted
Mhm.
going, that guy is a problem.
Yep.
What I remember is, just like we've seen a billion times in Green Bay, one day he stepped in and he was lights out ever since, right?
Jordy Nelson's the same thing.
Exactly. Like
Yep.
with this, I look at Karan, I look at Austin Booker. I see them as players that if you never hear from them again, that's the draft. That
Yep.
happens. You're not going to hit on all of these picks, but they're the right bets at the right spots in the draft,
Mhm.
where at the right positions too, Nick, where you can end up later, or you can end up in 2026, where suddenly Austin Booker has become a situational pass rusher, and Kiran Amegadjie is a starting left guard for the Bears. And we look back and we say, "Wow, I can't believe Ryan Pace actually pulled 5 starters out of that draft. That
Yeah.
never happens.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't happen at all. And it probably won't." But I look at this draft and I feel like the whole plan was cohesive. I love the fact that Ryan Poles, after drafting Booker, called it. I appreciate the fact that they have left that 2025 draft capital almost entirely sacred. mean, it's missing a 4th-round pick. So be it, right? That capital is ready for next year when the Bears need to make their final tune-up.
Well, hold on. There's still more with this draft class I want to talk about.
Oh,
Okay. So
are you going
there's
where I
some
think you're going?
yes, there's some veteran traits that we made here. And I know it's gonna bug you, but we got to talk about
No,
it.
no,
Okay.
no. It doesn't bug me. What bugs me is when people act like they're part of the draft class
I think
because,
they are. I think they are.
well,
How are
then
they
you
not?
have to include their contracts,
Sure, do that. That's
which
fine.
is fine. It's more to say that normally people go, we drafted Khalil Mack. And it's like, well, sort of, right? Because we're still paying Khalil Mack a lot of money. I look at this, like, let's talk about the veteran trades. I'm not being a downer. Let's
Okay.
start with
So
Montez Sweat.
okay, so
Banger trade.
yeah,
Like,
so
everything that was wrong about the Claypool trade is right about the
right.
Montez
Right. Okay,
Sweat
but
trade.
but you add all of this in. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do, y'all. Okay. I'm gonna go through the 3 veteran trades that Chicago did for players. I'm not gonna include N'Keal Harry. Okay, come on, let's just let that one go. Um, so because I think that was what, a 6th this year or a 7th this year was the yeah,
Are
whatever. We're letting that go. Okay. So
you not going to talk
Montez
about
Sweat.
Dan Feeney either?
No. Okay. So Montez Sweat, okay. It turned out to be the 40th overall pick in this year's class. And the 40th overall pick, ironically, got traded into by Philadelphia, which was so clutch because Green Bay was at 41. And who was still on the clock at 40 or who's still on the board at 40 was Cooper DeJean. And I'm so glad that Philly sniped Green Bay because I was going to get mad. But
Seriously.
anyways,
Seriously.
let's talk about who was available there. And you tell me, Robert. So again, knowing it's going to be okay, 25 million a year for Sweat. These guys are going to get paid probably what? Let's just say 2, okay, roughly. I don't know what they're going to get paid, okay? So, $23 million difference. Would you rather have Cooper DeJean, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Jackson Powers Johnson, Tyler Nubin, Zach Frazier, or if we go D-line, the D lineman that went was Mason Smith, Chris Jenkins, Michael Hall, Marshawn Nealon, or Chris Braswell?
Well, that's the part that's really brutal about this, right? You had Nealand and Braswell, et cetera, all falling into the 60s and 70s on PFF's mock draft simulator, and you still had people feeling kind of iffy about taking them there because when you aren't a star at edge, you are barely a starter at edge. There
Yep.
is no such thing as as like a middle class edge, right?
Yep.
And when it is, it's Jared Verse. I mean,
Yes.
it's just a difficult position
Yep.
to actually play at. So of course I'm going to go with Sweat. They
Okay.
needed a force player, not only in the run game, but the pass game. They needed this. And
Yep.
they got the guy who I think ended up with just a better production set, a little older, and I understand that, but I'm still glad they went with Sweat over Chase Young. And even if it meant that they paid a small premium to do so in terms of a 2nd rounder as opposed to a 3rd rounder, I'm still glad they made the decision that they did because Sweat is a reliable player that you can count on. The other piece to all of those players you mentioned, none of them fit what the Bears would have needed positionally. And I mean, it's one thing to say that we're going to take best player available. You can't seriously take DeJean in a world where you have Gervon Dexter, Andrew Billings, DeMarcus Walker, and I don't know who would be the other edge at that point. Like,
I mean, you could have taken Jackson Powers Johnson, right? And then there's your interior. But then, what do you do on the D line? It is beyond
it's
bad.
barren. It's
Yeah.
barren. And you
So
would have had to make a splash move in free agency. I mean,
yep.
that's the answer is that you would have had to. But I don't think you were finding a free agent at the level of Sweat. And you're probably spending more than Sweat's current contract is going to be worth. In just 1 year, you're going to have edges making well more than Montez Sweat is making. It already looks like a discount compared to Daniil Hunter, who's 30. So
Yep.
I can't help but look at the Sweat trade in particular. You could argue, Nick, none of this offseason is really possible without the Sweat trade because the desperation for one D lineman would have been way overboard.
Mhm. All right. So let's pivot then. Let's go to the next trade. Because I agree with you. I would have went with Sweat over all those guys. Even though I like some of those guys and like, okay, this is the fun value game. It's like I didn't like any of those edges enough to pay them that money to not do that trade.
You remember when Sweat was drafted?
Yeah, 1st round pick.
1st-round pick. I mean,
Yep.
to talk about any of those 2nd rounders as if they are the pedigree of player that Montez Sweat is not fair. I,
With this arm length at
it-
6'6",
let
like
me
come on,
ask you
y'all.
this.
Athleticism.
So we've seen the video of Chris Ballard laughing, saying, "They just gave us the best pass rusher in the draft." Like that one. If Montez Sweat was drafted in this edge class, where do you think he lands?
Oh, okay. So I would say one, knowing the medicals with Latu, 6'6". Uh, didn't he run like a 4.41 Montez Sweat?
Let me look that up. You
Yeah.
keep talking.
Okay.
I'll look that up.
Okay. Yeah. So you look that up. You add that in. Okay. But we have to pivot because again for time. So the Keenan Allen trade. Okay. Again, that was the Bears pick 110, and ironically, the player chosen
Oh
for the
my word,
Keenan
he
Allen
ran a
pick.
4.41.
Look at me, man. Give me a point.
Yeah,
Boom.
you get a point. He had 21 reps on the bench. He had a 125-inch broad. He
Yep.
had a 36-inch vert. I
Dude, he's
mean,
an athlete.
weighs in at 260.
What's the arm length?
His arm length is stupid. That's 35 and 3/4. Like, but you knew that. What I'm gonna look up real fast, Montez. Keep talking. I want to know his college stats on his final season.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So the wide receiver actually taken with the Keenan Allen pick is Javon Baker. Other guys drafted after that would be available. You could take would be Devontae Walker, Jacob Cowing, Anthony Gold, Anais Smith. Other players, if you did not take a receiver, Eric All, Javon Foster, Tanner Bordolini, Mason McCormick. I actually like that pick. That was a good value. Malik Mustafa. So I would easily take Keenan Allen and that contract, Robert, over any of those players. Would you pivot at all? You're muted.
I think you had to take Keenan when you did. I really do. Because even so, Ryan Poles says after the draft that Rome Odunze falling to us was pretty much 50-50. That's unacceptable if you don't have Keenan Allen. And even if you did, and if you didn't have Keenan Allen, a wide receiver room of DJ Moore and Rome Odunze is a lot to be excited about, but that doesn't mean anything. I've been here for Bears off seasons where we got excited over Darnell Mooney as our wide receiver one, who I still like. I will still go to bat for, but we also propped up ESB, Byron Pringle, and Dante Pettis
Yeah.
behind him as wide receiver 2, 3, 4 options. We've done more with worse, right?
Yeah.
So it's not surprising that we're really excited about this. To me, Keenan Allen brings you a veteran presence. He brings you leadership that you need because your quarterback can be as exuberant and excited as possible. He's not going to be able to speak veteran football until he is seasoned. And you can't
Mhm.
fake seasoning. I don't
Yeah.
care how Mac Jones or Bryce Young people want to make some of these quarterback prospects. You have not been in the league until you have been in the league. And there was no better expression of that than Jesse Bates picking Bryce Young off twice in their initial meeting, where it was like, Bryce, maybe that worked at Alabama. It's not going to work here.
Yeah.
And
Windows are smaller. Yep.
and so having Keenan Allen's ability to, I think, lead the offense with all of the gravitas of a 6-time Pro Bowler that has been there and done that is really important for this Bears team.
I I also think he's a bigger leader than DJ Moore is. I think you
Oh,
could
yeah.
argue who's the better player. I mean, they were 10th and 11th, y'all, in PFF ranking. Like they're about the same. DJ's obviously younger, but DJ's quiet. He's a
D-
quiet dude.
he is a quiet dude. Not to mention, I can't help but look at him and just see him being Keenan Allen and see all of the flexibility that, yes, at the end of the day, the Bears end up drafting Rome Odunze. But if you didn't get Rome Odunze, if Rome Odunze does go at number 8, Keenan keeps this offseason from feeling like a disaster where the Bears are
Yes.
walking right back
Well,
into
dude,
where they've
well,
been.
I bumped a tweet up because but right when remember when free agency happened and the Bears didn't get a big fish, and people were like, "Oh, Ryan Poles doesn't know what he's doing." Blah 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 blah. Then they traded for Keenan Allen. I said a lot of Bears fans owe some apologies. And now after this draft, that I retweeted it. I'm like, y'all need to check or remember where you were before this happened. Like he had a plan, but the thing I like about Poles is he's like, this is what we'll trade up for, and this is the value. This is what we'll spend, and this is the value. He has parameters. It's not crazy. So we both agree Keenan is the best value there. The last one, Ryan Bates. Okay. And we can go through the other two if you want to for fun. So, like I said earlier, they actually traded into this pick to take Austin Booker. So you could just debate not having Ryan Bates $4 million per year the next 2 years as your either starting center or backup interior O lineman for every spot. Or you could get Austin Booker, who they literally traded for. The other ones would be Brennan Jackson, Mo Kamara, Christian Jones. what would your choice be there, Robert?
I like Bates. It's going to sound melodramatic. I put an embargo on myself of writing an article about how much I liked Ryan Bates back when the Bears had RFA'd him because
Ah,
I
yeah,
didn't want the Bills to read it. I
yeah.
know that's so self-important, Nick, but I did not want to be part of the Ryan Bates hype machine just
Are,
in
are the
case.
Bills stalking your Twitter, man, and your
Just in
articles?
case they were paying attention, I was like, the NFL has done weirder things and they'll never admit it. You know what I mean?
You
But
should have
so
just skewed data, like put out a fake analytics
Well,
how bad
I
he is.
really like this guy. He can
Yeah, I know.
move. He's got the ability to play, especially as a guard. I mean, how's he going to play at center? Dude, I don't know. They've got Coleman Shelton for that, just in case it doesn't work. But I think a veteran is really core here because as much as you could sell me on all the different centers, Tanner Bortolini, Hunter Norzad, Bo Limmer, these Cedric Van Pran, these guys were not hitting the league and immediately playing with the gravitas of somebody who has seen a double left blitz before. Like
Yeah.
maybe they've seen it in college, but Roquan Smith can get there. That
Mhm.
ability to snap the football and immediately get up because you know the linebacker is on you. That's pro football. And if you're not ready for it, Caleb just got hit, and it's your fault.
So let me ask you this, okay? So if all 3 of these veteran trades we agree with, okay? And then the other ones y'all like, okay, yeah, they gave up for the 6th, they Malik Washington went to Jace McClellan, I mean, 7th, do I dare even look? Uh that's where Jaheim Bell went. Like you're
Useful
very grasping at
players,
straws,
useful players, maybe, but
maybe.
seventh rounders are very often Steven Denmark.
And
Guys
in
that
this class.
total flyers, total
So
flyers.
So let me ask you this, Robert. We both just agreed we would have done the Montez Sweat trade, the Keenan Allen trade, the Ryan Bates trade. Again, it does take cap space to pull those off, right? That you're going to pay more than a rookie, and cost control, more. I mean, because Keenan's 1 year, whatever. Should teams be trading picks for veterans more often?
I think it depends because veterans obviously cost more, right? The key here is cost control and being able to fit everybody under the cap while looking for the next Cam Chancellor and Richard Sherman. The fact that the Bears haven't found one recently is a kind of a bummer, right? Because normally a fourth round pick should be coming Eddie Jackson every once in a while. But it's been a dry spell for the Bears. I
Yeah,
guess Braxton is our best
yeah,
answer here,
Braxton. Yeah,
which counts for
Tariq
something,
Cohen. Yeah,
counts for
Tariq Cohen.
something,
Yeah,
but it's in this case specifically. So if we were to build a pie chart of the offense, right, and we were going to try to assign impact that all the different positions have to the offense, right? So maybe wide receiver is 30% of the pie, and running back is 15% of the pie, and then offensive line is 30% of the pie. I'm going to dock wide receiver and offensive line and running back all a little bit. So wide receiver is going to go down to 25, and offensive line is going to stay at 30, and running back's going to go down to 10. Okay. So
less
if I've done the math right,
5.
quarterback is 40%,
Yeah.
and that's a rookie. And you
Mhm.
can't change that. So way too much of our offense is already governed by rookie. And
Yeah.
because of that, a team of veterans for this year makes
Yes.
so much sense.
Yes. Well,
Surround Caleb with guys that have been there.
but even Keenan teaching Rome Odunze, I
Yes,
love.
I love it.
Teaching Tyler Scott, I love. Having Gerald Everett there to help those guys out, I love. That's why you bring in Swift. I know Swift isn't amazing, y'all. I loved him out of college. He hasn't been what you wanted to be in the NFL, but he gives more support. He's going to catch it and get more yards than Herbert would get, than Roshan Johnson would get, even though I like those guys. So
And you could argue, Nick, that Caleb will learn more from throwing to the guys that have been there and done that because while Rome is going to learn along with him, and that's a good thing, if you're learning to check the ball down, checking it down to Khalil Herbert, who just won't be there sometimes, or Roshan Johnson that doesn't have the speed to create a big play, if I was Caleb, I would stop checking it down to the running back. I would not build that as part of one of my habits, right? Because these guys just aren't the danger that Swift can be. When you check it down to him, he breaks one tackle, reminiscent of David Montgomery with some of his runs with Justin Fields and Mitch Trubisky. Where you dump it off to David Montgomery, you're very rarely wrong. That guy, as a receiving back, was always dangerous. So there's a veteran element of this team where you can point to Caleb and you could say, this is how it's intended to work. And yes, you're fitting Roma Odunze into that puzzle. I understand that. But you don't have to worry about whether your left guard heard the blitz call because it's his job to. He's a veteran. You don't have to worry about whether your left tackle has seen that rush move before. He has been in this division for a
Yeah.
couple years now. And
Mhm.
maybe you make some arguments about Darnell Wright, but I don't know, man. I like that this year in particular, they're vet heavy, and next year in particular, they have their whole class. Because then you can go back to common logic. You can start treating your team like it's got a veteran quarterback.
Well,
Hey,
you got
it'll only be 2 years,
you
but
got 2 seconds.
that's it.
No, I'm saying you have 2 seconds, is what
Oh,
I'm saying.
yes.
You have more. I mean, you don't have your
I
4th,
thought you were
but
cutting
having
me
that
off, which I would
no,
have
no, no.
understood.
No, and plus you have, maybe if Ian Cunningham gets traded, you get more. So, yeah, no, I agree with you. I just think it's something interesting to think about because we do see a pattern with polls trading picks for veterans. Even the Chase Claypool not working out, I think shouldn't deter you because more times than not, it does work out. You know
Okay.
what I mean?
So to quickly answer a question that if you listener are like me, you would be thinking this. I did look this up, by the way. Montez Sweat in his junior season, 15 and a half TFLs, 10 and a half sacks. His senior season, another 14 and a half TFLs, 12 sacks. Dallas Turner, his his sophomore season, he had 8 TFLs, 4 sacks. His senior season, 14 and a half, 10 sacks. So Montez better statistically, no injury on his rap, right? Jared Verse, both years, 9 sacks that he started. And then he had 17 TFLs and 12 and a half TFLs. So Montez better 1 year, but better sack production on both. Leontu Latu had an insane 12 and a half TFLs and 13 sacks in his senior season, but he's 24. Whereas Montez hit the league at 23. So there is an argument to be made here that Montez Sweat as a prospect would have probably been debated as edge 2 and somebody's edge 1 just
Yeah.
based on the consistency that you got out of him
Mhm.
as Mississippi State. And that speaks to what you're saying of did the Bears actually pay a discount for this pedigree of player,
Mhm.
right? Because normally it costs way more than the 40th pick in the draft to get a player like that. They threw some of it on their cap. I'm not dumb, right? But Nick, I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing. There is a trend we're seeing around the league where teams are inefficiently using the cap space that they have, and they end up paying bloated contracts for players that just don't tilt the field. I'm not going to mention the Jermaine Edmonds contract. That's the one I will leave
Yeah.
out because that's
Yeah, yeah.
kind of the example that you would point to. Whereas it feels as if Ryan Poles has been using these deadline deals to acquire players at core positions that you can't otherwise add outside
Mhm.
of paying an expensive draft pick you only get one of
Mm.
or paying an exorbitant trade sum usually when there's no leverage.
Mhm. So, along those lines, okay, and I know we're 2 hours into this podcast,
We're not.
but
We're an
we're
hour
getting there.
and 20 minutes. Thank
Alright.
you.
Alright, we're getting there. Anyways, the debate now is what happens after this year, okay? And I'm gonna open this can of worms just because I you know me, I do the research because I don't say anything, y'all, unless I have it researched. This isn't just off the cuff, okay? So the Bears have $96.6 million next year. That's not you have to add in all these rookies. Okay. So let's narrow that down. Let's say that's going to be 80. Okay. And probably less with rookies next year, et cetera. But still, there's going to be a good chunk of cap space. Keenan Allen's a free agent.
I see $76 million. Where are you seeing
Well, that's probably including rookies, I would assume.
wait, salary cap calculator. This is also assuming a $260 million salary cap,
Mhm.
but this current salary cap is $260 million. So maybe it's just wrong. Like
Yeah.
I have a feeling what you're looking at is just guessing a different
Yeah.
top end
Yeah.
number for the
Yeah. It's
total
guessing.
salary cap.
Well, even to that point, right? You could get more. So I mean, like, I'll go through this quickly. You could cut Demarcus Walker and save 5.2 if you wanted to. You can cut Nate Davis, which talked about this, 6.75. Depends how people play. You can cut Everett and save 4 million. Jonathan Owens, save 1 million. Velus Jones save $1 million, right? That can be wide receiver 5 now. Okay. Either way, no matter what the cap space is, there's going to be a significant number. Keenan's a free agent. Tevin Jenkins is a free agent. And those are the two big ones, really. I mean, Khalil Herbert will be gone.
Hey,
Sanborn,
don't talk
Sanborn,
about don't talk about Jack Sanborn and
he's an RFA.
unironically,
He's an RFA.
unironically, Jalen Jones, the RFA, is probably coming back too. Jalen
Yeah,
played
probably.
really well in limited
Special
action
teams.
last year,
Yep.
and he's playing a ton of special teams. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Bears will keep him if they can. But like
So,
you're saying, outside of that, it's like Greg Stroman and
yeah,
a
yeah.
whole
Coleman
bunch of
Shelton.
Nisimba
Yeah.
Webster,
Yeah.
grinder.
Kari blasting game. So, okay. So to that point, okay. Speaking of how people are field tilters, right? I know this doesn't get people excited with fantasy football. Okay. Do you extend Keenan Allen and he's your slot guy and you have these 3 weapons and you do it for, I don't know, a year or 2? And Keenan knows now he's never had a ring. And that's what we're chasing. And let's say the Bears do go to the playoffs this year, right? Then next offseason, he could leave and go get the bank, or he can try to stay. And he's like, you know what? I know my role is here. I got a rapport with Caleb already, right? I like it here in Chicago. And because you have Caleb on the rookie deal, Rome on the rookie deal, you're gonna have money to spend a little bit. Now I know we want the D line, y'all. I'm not disagreeing with that part of it, but Keenan Allen is a difference maker. So, an interesting thing, I'm just wondering here, you extend by 2 years, you give him, I don't know, somewhere in the low 20s, I guess, is what you would probably pay, something like that. And then you keep your trio, and it's not going to be great for fantasy, but for NFL purposes, it would be amazing. What do you think about that, Robert?
I think it's going to depend on Keenan in 2 ways. I think it's going to depend on Keenan's health. So,
Mhm.
does he get through this season with enough minor injuries and nothing major to the point where you're not worried about how his game will age? His game should age more gracefully than most receivers. We are also well past the expiration date compared to most receivers. So, we're between a rock and a hard place in terms of how well is Keenan going to play going forward. But also, Nick, I think there's a ceiling on what you can spend on Keenan Allen. I think you can extend him for 13, 14, $15 million a year. I don't know if you need to spend $20 million a year on Keenan Allen, knowing that after next year, if DJ Moore plays even medium well, they're going to extend him too. So how much are you going to spend on this receiver trio? I don't know.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
have no idea.
I
But
get it.
if he wants to ring chase, you may see an agreeable scenario between the two where the Bears can pay him enough to be worth staying, as opposed to going into the open market and picking where his career will end,
Mhm.
which I just don't know how in demand a guy like Keenan Allen is truly going to be. And I mean that I don't know,
Yeah,
because it wasn't long ago that it looked like DeAndre Hopkins wasn't going to find a place to
yeah,
be.
yeah.
So veteran wide receivers have it rough out there,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I'm
Yeah.
definitely interested. It's up to Keenan.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's just interesting. And then you feel like, well, we need to get an edge. Okay, there are some guys next year's class, some young, some old that are free agents. Trey Hendrickson, some guy people will remember named Khalil Mack will be a free agent. You have Josh Sweat, I believe, is a free agent, like Demarcus Lawrence in Dallas.
All
So
the
you some
on top of that, all the
good.
look aheaders keep talking about how this is a sweet D line class coming up next year. We'll
Uh-huh.
see if they all declare. But to use Jacob Infante's analysis, he said he has 3 D tackles that he would have had ahead of his D tackle 1 this last year. He's got 3 edges that he think were better than any of the edges in this class. And the presumed number 1 overall pick is some edge rusher out of Tennessee that's apparently just a bat out of hell.
Yep.
So I don't know anything about this. I get to the draft much later than people like Jacob do. But it's more to say that there may be options there. There is
Yeah.
one option, Nick, I want to pitch to you. Okay?
Sure.
One. And I can't believe we're back to talking about this position. So this one may drive you up the wall. All right? But looking around the league, Trey Hendrickson, would he fit in Chicago? Absolutely. Do the Cincinnati Bengals have any reason to deal him? I don't think so. The Bengals could hold all their guys requesting trade requests hostage for all they care. Even just getting one more year out of this core is going to be meaningful to them, right? At that point, you're looking at edges like Carl Lawson. You're looking at edges like, is it Emmanuel Ogba? who's still who's still out there. Calais Campbell,
He might have retired though. I can't remember.
he might have. The question becomes: are any of these guys better than trading for Jonathan Allen out of Washington, who would be a three
Oh,
tech that you would immediately be able to add? Because when you look at Washington right now, the question becomes: they just drafted Johnny Newton with a top 40 pick. They obviously have paid Deron Payne very recently. Right near
mhm.
the deadline, Jonathan Allen actually asked for a trade, and then we just forgot about it as a collective conscience within the NFL. They've got John Ridgeway. They just added, oh gosh, Fidarian Mathis out of Alabama. There is one too many guys in that defensive tackle room.
Well,
Maybe Allen will get cut. Or alternatively, maybe Washington fully expects Jonathan Allen to be a defensive leader a la we do with Keenan Allen. All of this is possible. Or they want to deal him. And if they want to deal him, how much would it really cost? He's 29. He plays three tech. A team's going to have to soak $15 million in cap space and then another $20 million next year.
yeah.
But if you did add a player like him, I think he means way more to Chicago than he means to most teams. And it's just a matter of, was last season, which wasn't super great, an aberration or a sign of things to come?
Yeah, that's it. I did not think of Jonathan Allen. I had other guys on my list. I did not have him on there. Um, man, that would be. I mean, that would be nice because you have 2 years or 1.5 years, depending on when you trade for him of cost control. To me, like what starts coming to play here would be the Bears' own second round pick. I don't think you'd trade an early second for something like this, but the later second would make some sense to me. Um,
Smart people even said to me that you might be able to do it for a third.
yeah,
So I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, the one I thought of, I mean, I'll say this much. I would be game because I think that these next 2 years, let's go. Because
The
I think we're ready to go. Um, the one I
question to
think
me to wrap it up, if you don't mind me tying a bow
w
on it.
well, can I have my one guy in there?
Absolutely.
Mine's Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack was the 6th best edge last year. Trading for him, would cost the Chargers $8 more million, so you have to pay for that. But letting him because he's a free agent after the year, he's so far in the veteran area that I think it's just like Keenan Allen. The best comp pick they can get is like a fifth. So would you trade a third for 1 year of Khalil Mack or part of a year?
Is he 33 at this point?
He might be 34. Let
Like,
me look.
there is a point where we're not looking for. I understand that I'm talking about Jonathan Allen, who's 29 years old and might be 30 next year. I can't remember. I don't have it right in front of me. But I look at Mac and I see that is way too short term an investment.
He's 33.
I love the vibes behind a trade like that, but we do need this guy to be reasonably around in 2026 or at least 2025. And the nice part about Allen is at least you get this year and also next year, which isn't to be
Mhm.
like, my idea is the best. It's more
I mean,
like with Mac in particular, I would way rather trade a little more for Hendrickson, who is also 29 going on 30. In with Hendrickson, the problem is that you have to give him a super deal the moment you
yes.
get him into Chicago
Yep.
because
Yep.
his contract is expiring and he quote wants more security. It's the whole reason he wants to get traded. But I think Mac freaks me out because while I respect and love that he's defying father time, the guys that defy father time, I'd rather them do it somewhere else rather than my team,
Well,
especially if we're counting on him.
it almost could be perfect if you think about it. If you could get him somewhat, cheaply, because he is old and he does want to win. I think, and he's been here. That's because Hendrickson, if you look at the difference between the two, Mac last year, y'all, had a 91.8 PFF
Mac was
grade.
amazing.
Hendrickson was 82. Like you're getting a fair, like Mac was just below TJ Watt, Max Crosby, Nick Bosa,
Was.
Micah Parsons.
He's 33.
He did it last year at that age.
He did it last year. That father time comes overnight for some of these guys. It's the same worry with Keenan Allen. We can't
Uh-huh.
predict when it's over. We just know one of these days it will be, right? And we
Would you
don't
do it for a fourth? You get him for 1 year for a fourth.
I don't know. Because the other part about this that I didn't even manage to get out is the Bears right now have about $22 million in salary cap space. keeping in mind that they probably want to keep $5 to $10 million. Let's split it down the middle. Let's say it's 7.5 for in-season moves, and it'll cost $14 million to sign your draft class. Anybody who's quick-witted has done the math and realized the Bears are up against the cap right now. So if you do make any of these moves, you have to figure it out. You have to cut Larry Borum, which is fine. Who's going to miss that? You have to, I think you get a little bit of salary cap relief from the way that draft incentives are done. So you might get about $5 million back. But then at that point, Nick, you have to dip into restructures. So Tremaine Edmonds' contract is begging to be restructured. But does that mean you're willing to do it? Because that ties you to Edmonds for that much longer. Ryan Poles may have a hard glass box over the restructure button that he's not willing to lift. And if he's not, none of these moves are happening. That's how I see it.
No,
right?
I know.
But
And I think that goes into the trade though too. Depending on what the salary is for the player, you could have that team eat some of the salary versus the draft pick. Like I think there's a big debate for it, but in a window, now's the time when it's a little bit different than when we're getting very careful about how much we spend. Things change. So just some things to think about. But
oh yeah,
at a minimum, I think tomorrow, actually, Robert, when this comes out, is when Calais Campbell can get signed by Chicago and doesn't count against the comp pick formula. I think that's when that changes. If he gets signed, I will be ecstatic. He's a guy that will be steady. He's old. You're talking about old. He's going to be 37, 38. He can play tackle or edge. He's going to be more of a pocket pusher. But even I've talked about, he was the 23rd best edge last year at 37.
right.
Like, or maybe he's 36, but still like old. And that's great. That's fine. I just need someone that's not terrible over there. That wasn't, Unique Ngakwe last year. Like just someone that can be steady against the run and maybe a little pocket pusher. That's fine. If you get him, I would be ecstatic.
I would be really intrigued. I'm still going to hold to that when it comes to old players, we just don't know when the end of the road is. I mean, it's the same reflects both ways, right? Where for as much as I would come down on Gervon Dexter because of what we saw in his play against the run, holes in his game that I think were more worrying than we let on sometimes. Nick, at the end of the day, he's a rookie. Rookies rarely have the whole league figured out. They come back much better as second-year players. 37-year-olds, statistical likelihood to produce again at 38 is low. But that doesn't mean it can't happen. That doesn't mean
How much
it
money?
can't happen.
How much money do you think he made last year?
I think he was probably planned for $3.5 million.
It was 7 last year.
Okay.
So it's probably going to come down.
Probably. You gotta think so, right?
So let's see. The contract before with the Ravens was 2 years, 12 and a half. So he made a little bump. The time before that it was yeah. So he's going down as I see the contracts. So if it's 1 year, $5 million, you wouldn't do it?
I don't know. I think I can wait.
You're that. Come on, Robert.
He's gonna be 38 years old.
Who
Hey,
cares? He was.
Don't say who cares. When you say who cares, you bet against the data.
The data of him being, again, this isn't like he's a difference making edge. You said you want difference makers on the field. You
Yeah.
need it for
I
$5
want
million?
them on the field.
Yeah.
The old people get hurt.
712 snaps last year.
If
That's more
the
than Bryce
Bears
Huff.
if the Bears do
That's
it,
more than Rashawn Gary.
if the Bears do it, I'll sit here and justify it. Probably say all the same things you would. If I was in the room with Poles, I would say that's our move. And if he didn't say, well, yeah, we need a stopgap that's cheap, then I would continue to object.
Oh my gosh.
It's
All
hey,
right, Robert.
we can agree to disagree.
Robert, this is why this is good. Listen, we're Poles and Ian Cunningham. We're not yes
Right.
men. We can disagree on this one.
The other piece to this,
I'm on the table pounding for Calais Campbell.
Good.
Okay.
the other piece to this that I think we should mention is for as much as you and I want to hit the gas, go get that D lineman, finish this team. You don't actually have to do that in a hurry. If I was Ryan Poles, the more I think about it, Nick, the timeline for this move makes a lot more sense in camp than it does now, because you want to go through OTAs. You want to get a feel for Caleb as a pro. Yes, you have an idea of what he was going to be. Now he is a pro. Now you can go through rookie minicamp. Now you can get a feel for how well does he know the playbook. And I bet, Nick, because you're a coach, you've been here before too, the coaches will get an idea of how successful are we actually going to be on offense.
Yeah.
And the moment you determine that this is actually going to go pretty well, yes, it's time to load or get that final piece for the defense and let's prove this concept. But if it looks like we're going to be a rookie making rookie mistakes, maybe best to be prudent, which of course none of us will like. None of us will think is fun. But prudence is what got us to here. So if it
I
takes
get it.
one more year, I get it.
I just think it's such a low risk. Again, way better run defender than pass rusher. I get it, y'all. I get it. I just feel better. But Robert, this is a fun podcast, man.
Oh man, this is awesome. The draft is graded. At this point, we get to talk. I'm so glad we get to stop talking about names of random college kids. And now we get to
I
start talking about Bears.
hold on. I'm just glad I don't have to fear Byron Murphy being a Bear with how much you are pumping this guy up.
I was so ready. I was so ready for the most Bears pick on the planet. And I
Did
was
you have an
like,
article already written about Byron
I
Murphy?
already wrote it. I posted it too. I mean, yeah, I was ready. Are you kidding? I did two. I managed, I intended to do 9. I did 2 scouting reports, and they were on Byron Murphy and Jared Verse. Because at the end of the day, those were the 2 that I was most sure were on the table when it came to defenders at 9. And instead, Ryan Poles had 3 top 10 picks, and he used all 3 of them on offensive players. What a time to be a Bears fan.
Yeah. I have one other thing. This is non-Bears related, okay? Is just in the division, looking at the other picks, okay? I want to talk about JJ McCarthy real quick. So I like JJ McCarthy. He was my quarterback 3, my personal rankings. Now, again, that's Nick Whalen, Twitter guy who, coaching background, some college, some high school guy. Okay. Not pro, scouts who that's the other part, y'all, is like there are good and bad picks, right? Like we all, don't think the Falcons did the prudent move, but they're making moves based off of their job security, their families, their future, their careers, right? And they're putting way more resources than we are, right? They know way more information than any of us know. There were 4 NFL teams, Robert, that decided, you know what? Nah, we're going to take a different quarterback, not named JJ McCarthy. The Giants, who I mentioned this earlier, who have Daniel Jones, and it ain't going good, y'all. And people aren't happy in New York. They decided, nah, we're going to take a receiver instead of JJ McCarthy or Michael Penix Jr. if you wanted to. The Titans, who I thought could have been in the quarterback market, decided to go JC Latham, who I think is awesome, decided to stick with Will Levis, even though it's a new regime. And I think Levis, over the last, again, don't quote me on this one. I think it's like last 8 games had 4 touchdowns, 4 picks or something like that. Like he had a very bad ratio. Again, as a rookie, he played like a rookie. I get it. But if he's not established, why would you not think JJ McCarthy, whomever else? And then they moved up 1 pick. I get it. They give up a 4th and a 5th for that pick and a 6th exchange or whatever. But the NFL did not think the same of JJ McCarthy that I think a lot of people thought. They're going to move up. They're going to give up 3 firsts. They got to be at 4, Robert, or they got to be at 5
Yep.
to take this guy. There were not only did Minnesota not do that move, because if they loved him that much, they would do that move because they're risking losing him the whole time. The Giants didn't just pick him. The Titans didn't just pick him. The Falcons picked Penix over him. Well, it would make more sense to take the raw 21-year-old quarterback than the 23, 24-year-old Penix, right? In terms of like, okay, we'll get him, we'll develop him. That would have made more sense. So I know people are super hyped in Minnesota right now. They got JJ McCarthy. They didn't give up the picks. They got Dallas Turner. You had to give up future capital next year. I get it. Like they're all pumped. Oh, yeah, let's go. Maybe he's not as good when you look at how many teams, count them up, y'all, decided not to take JJ McCarthy and did something different.
There are a lot of things I think JJ did really, really well last year. I mean, especially when it came to attacking over the middle of the field, when it came to reading out the defense, processing like a pro in many ways. But also, I mean, yeah, Nick, this goes back to the data thing that I'm talking about, right? How well or how good is the third receiver in most drafts? Well, not that amazing. So what does
Mhm.
it mean that the Bears took one with the top 10 pick? They think Rome is different, right?
Yep.
And we've been down this road. Justin Fields should have been the QB2. Everybody knows that. No, they don't. Justin Fields got drafted at number 11,
Mhm.
and he ended up being the QB4 in the draft. And I think he's been the QB2 in a bad quarterback class, which
Mhm.
ended up not meaning much. But like you're talking about, Nick, your odds the moment you take quarterback 5 are pretty low that you found yourself a winner. Now,
Mac Jones.
winner is exactly what JJ has been. It wouldn't
Mhm.
surprise me if I think JJ McCarthy is going to surprise us in the positive, but I don't think his ceiling is that high. Like
Yeah.
let's put him on the danger like readout. I think JJ may prove himself to be a perfectly capable starter. I just don't know in a division with Jordan Love's steamrolly Green Bay Packers and whatever you'd consider the current Lions, as well as the trajectory of the current Bears, if that's going to be enough. Because the Vikings ended up trading the value of the 5th overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft for the privilege of taking JJ McCarthy and Dallas Turner. And to me, that's way too much when you look at those two players in a vacuum. That's just how I
Mhm.
feel about it, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just interesting because like when you think of the arms race and all of the again, we've all done it. When you think of all of the positives, like, oh, like okay, this and this and everything is gonna work like TJ Hawkinson towards ACL and MCL December 24th.
Awful.
Is he even gonna play this year? Like, I don't know. Or come back or be the same player when he is. Like you start adding all these things together, you got to pay Jefferson. Like I get it. I like if everything goes perfect, if Turner becomes whatever they think he can become, and if McCarthy does, I still don't think the ceiling's there, like because his ceiling is almost like golf. If you think about it, he's like a golf like player, and golf's fine when the NFC's down. But I mean, are you fearing Jared Goff now that the Bears have Caleb Williams?
I definitely think that Jared Goff doesn't get enough shine from even comments just like that. That's not me trying to hate Nick. It's more
No,
me
you can.
saying
You can.
Goff is a
Are you
really solid quarterback. I'm
solid? Are you scared of him?
no, but
That's what I
he
meant.
also has the Cousins thing where he plays his worst games against the Bears. So whether we have his number or not, I couldn't tell you. I just know that I have no reason to be afraid of Jared Goff. He has not pounded us the way that he's pounded plenty of other teams in the division. The part that gets me, Nick, when I look at this Vikings team is that this Vikings team has been hailed an amazing situation for a rookie quarterback. And this Vikings team went 7-10 last year, and
Mhm.
they didn't do it in sterling fashion. I mean, we're talking about, I think, a team where Kirk Cousins was chucking the pill. Like, I thought he played very good football. And now, to your point, you've got two major pass catchers that are nursing injuries. We like what Kevin O'Connell does generally, but we
Mhm.
also tend to crown somebody and then never take the crown off, right? Unless you're Brian Dable, at which point I guess we just rip it off of you after that first season
Yeah,
because we
but
feel like it.
I've heard that too. Kevin O'Connell, great play caller. Okay, I mean he had Cousins and he got dealt the best receiver in the NFL. I assume your offense is going to be okay.
Not
You
to
know what I mean?
mention they took Addison. Addison's a good player. And then
Yeah.
they added Hawkinson. Hawkinson's a good player. So
Mhm.
you end up with an offense with weapons, and they end up taking an L in the first round of the playoffs last year. And then this last year, they deal with all kinds of quarterback trauma. Why is JJ McCarthy, the rookie who's 20 years old and is probably starting a little too soon, and Sam Darnold going to be that much better than the Pastronaut and Jaron Hall? Like, why is this stable now? It's not.
Mhm.
There's no good argument that it is. So
Mhm.
now you need Brian Flores to continue to work his magic after an entire season's worth of tape has now gotten out on exactly how Brian Flores plans to attack you. Will it make a difference? I don't know. Sometimes NFL coordinators have bad habits of being really pig-headed. And if you know me at all, Nick, you know that it takes me a lot to say that. But I am still amazed that after an entire season of Justin Fields struggling against zone coverages, Atlanta trotted out a man-based defense and didn't do anything when DJ Moore started in the slot on most big passing plays.
Yep.
What were they thinking? This
Yep.
happens in the NFL though,
Yeah.
right? Where you go, did you think that would work? There's no reason to believe it would work, but you thought it would work.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, and you look at we just talked about Detroit and Green Bay, with the DBs, like that's fine if they want to bring pressure like we talked about. If you looked at the Vikings secondary,
It's rough.
oh my, I mean, rough is I mean, it might be one of the worst units in the NFL.
It's bad. And then Detroit, everybody's really stoked about the fact that they're starting 2 rookie corners. I have never seen any rookie corner play well outside of Sauce. I mean, you get some guys that are pretty surprising, but Nick, this is very normal. Where every offseason we go, man, Terrion Arnold. I love Terrion Arnold. And Ennis Rakestraw, like I love him too. The Lions, man, they've got good corners. In 2 years, maybe at least in a year, next year, they have rookies.
Mhm.
Terrion Arnold is probably pretty good. Is he good? And by that I mean I know he's really good. He's really good at Alabama. Does that mean he's ready to play DJ Moore with the game on the line, or even with the?
Why did he fall to pick 20?
I mean, probably. I think just because everybody had different needs. I mean, you
No,
had
but I mean,
6
but that's
quarterbacks
another
go.
thing. I just think it's an interesting conversation because like right now we're even doing the same thing, you know, all, all starry eyed, all the good things are going to happen. Could they happen? Sure.
Nick,
Odds are no, right?
Nick,
Bad things are
that's
going
my
to happen.
favorite part. There's only 2 players that have to do anything next year for next year to be a perfectly successful season, and that's Caleb Williams and Tory Taylor. If Rome Odunze just plays a developmental wide receiver 3 role, catches 650 yards, learns a lot, comes back the next year, 1,200 yards, perfectly on track. Like this is going well at that point. If Keenan Allen goes down and Rome has to step in, it's a good thing he's there, right? But in the world of has to contribute, the Bears don't need that much from their rookies outside of the fact that one plays quarterback and the other's going to be the starting punter. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's the reason I'm so high. I'm anti-rookie. The Packers are going to start Edgerrin Cooper. Thank God.
And safety Bullock.
Right. And Bullock's played safety for 1 season of his life.
Mhm.
You think that's going to go well? And then you look at Detroit. Detroit has 2 outside corners that are probably going to start as rookies in a man defense where we only blitz sometimes. This is the plan? Like, and then you look at the Vikings. We just decided that because we made lemonade out of lemons once, we are going to continue to supply our defensive coordinator with paper mache. And then somebody's going to look at me and they're going to say, well, come on, they had Dallas Turner and Rashad Grenard. And I'm going to say, I mean, yes, but that is just not that much ammo considering what most teams throw at you on the defensive line.
I mean, they signed. Let's look, Andrew Van Ginkel coming off injury, but I mean, I don't mind him. They
They also
signed
have
like
the Saints
like
guy, former Saints guy, right?
Cashman.
Do they still have Marcus Davenport?
No, Davenport's in Detroit now.
There you go.
So, but like they, I mean, I don't mind what they kind of did up front, but like
No,
up front,
it's not like they did a bad job. I'm more
but wait,
pointing
on
out
the
that it's not
back
a.
end,
Do you think
it's
it's
not
a
going to matter.
field tilting unit on
No,
the front end?
no,
I think it's acceptable.
no.
Acceptable's good. I wish we had acceptable on the front end. That's not me hating on the Bears. Everybody, put your pitchforks down. Uh, it's more that, to your point, Nick, have fun, Andrew Booth covering
Well,
DJ Moore.
it's Byron Murphy, it's um Caleb Evans, Josh Metellus is nickel who just blitzes all the time. It's Cameron Bynum and then Harrison Smith. How old is Harrison Smith now?
Probably older than Mac.
Oh, I'm gonna look. Yeah, the guy you don't want to count on. Harrison Smith is 35.
I know. I'm applying the same logic there too, man. Like, I understand that you'll get these legend players like Urlacher that are somehow still linebacking at age 38. That is awesome. But the moment you're a step old, you spend a whole season watching their retirement parade, like while they're chasing plays.
But
It's never fun.
didn't they have a first round pick safety? There is Lewis Klein. Remember Ursine? Remember him?
Mm-hmm.
He is just a backup.
It's been
What?
bad, dude. It's been bad what they've had going on. But that's not me sitting here trying, I guess. It's going to sound like it. Like I'm sitting here saying, oh, the Bears rule. Everybody else sucks. I think what the Packers did was fine. right? They ignored positional value, but they drafted gamers. The Detroit did their Detroit thing, where they just flipped the bird to the board and drafted all the guys they liked. Happy
Yep.
for them. It's the same problem I had with the draft last year. And as long as Brad Quinn still keeps, or Brad Holmes still keeps just whooping, and they drafted a way above average success rate, good. But
Mhm.
past a certain point, coming away from the draft with a running back, a sweet nickel corner, and a tight end will run out if your trenches fade.
Right,
And
and a linebacker
he doesn't count yet because Jack
in round
Campbell
1.
hasn't been that dude.
Yeah. No, I know, yeah, that's true.
And so I can't help just looking at the Bears situation. They hammered a bunch of premium positions. They traded for stopgaps or outright solutions at a bunch of other positions. They drafted positions that matter. They drafted players at those positions that might be
Mhm.
meaningful. It is hard for me to not be pretty amped up about the trajectory of this
Yeah.
current Bears.
Can
I will say I'm about 5 months away from not really caring about trajectory anymore. There's a
Yeah.
point where the pudding has to show a little
Yep.
bit of proof, but
Yep.
we aren't there yet. This is kind of like what the last stop at Hope Station before we get to like show me land.
Yeah. No, but it's getting depth at positions, like doing all of the other things, like even Tory Taylor, are the things that you do right before you're ready to start competing. And we
Right.
talked about how easy the schedule is. Honestly, Robert, the Bears should be competing for the division this year. I don't think that they're going to win it easily. Things would have to happen, right? But I
And
think
they
that
might.
they're in the conversation with it. With Detroit, I don't know how Green Bay will be, new defense, and if they're going to be like they were the second half of the year, or whatever. But I think that it's the conversation, which honestly is all you want for 2024.
I think you want a playoff spot. Want.
Mhm.
Emphasis on want. I don't think you need a playoff spot to prove your point. But a team this good, especially because Nick, they're playing a fourth place schedule. What does that mean? Somebody
Oh,
asks. Well,
you're playing New England. You're
it
playing
means they're
Washington.
playing, yeah, New England and Washington and Minnesota. And did I mention Minnesota again? They're playing uh, Carolina, which is going to be
You
great. They're
ready to pull it
playing
up?
the
Oh, hold on.
Titans.
With that, by the way, did you see the tweet? Someone's like, "Who do you want to beat no matter what in 2024?" And Panthers fans are like the Bears. Like they hate us.
I would too. If I was a Panthers fan, I would hate the Bears because it's the only way to stay sane, right?
Here, you want me to go through the schedule?
Uh, if we did, we'll be here another 40
No,
minutes.
it'll be quick. It'll be quick.
Go for it.
So we know the division, right? Home games: Rams, Seahawks, Jaguars, Titans, Panthers, Patriots.
That Seahawks team might be bad. Like they just lost their offensive coordinator. Is more what I'm thinking out loud. They've got a sick defensive line, or at least the bones of one.
Yep.
But if you take the Waldron out of the offense and suddenly suddenly Geno goes back to looking like Jets Geno, which I doubt. I think Geno balls. But there's I'm more thinking about variables, man. Because
Yeah.
we always do this where we act like last year's teams are exactly the same teams that are
Yep.
going to be on these schedules. They never are. Like
No.
everybody's looking at the Lions and they're projecting this rise. I can't help but wonder if this last season was their 2018, meaning their 2019 might be coming, where they're
Yeah.
too big to fail, but they may not reach anything
Yeah.
meaningful either.
Yeah.
So then
And
at that point, the division's between who else, man? It's between
yeah.
the Bears and the Packers.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it be? Right? Like, call me storybook Nick, but of course it would be the Bears and the Packers. Of course it would
So
be the Bears and the Packers.
so with that, right? Rams, Seahawks, Jaguars, Titans, Panthers, Patriots.
Mhm.
I think they're at least in all of those games, right?
Oh man, I hope they're favored.
Right. So then let's go to away games. Cardinals, 49ers, Texans, Colts, Commanders. So 49ers, Texans will be more difficult games,
Much
right?
more.
On the road, maybe you're not even favored in those. The other
Probably
ones,
not.
the other ones should be favored, probably,
Gotta
right?
think so,
So
right?
like just talking about like in the conversation for the division, in the conversation for a playoff spot, that's the goal this year.
If you can beat the Jags, the Seahawks, the Rams, you have a shot at a double digit win season. Now that's a lot, right?
Mm.
But it's turning some of these auto loss games into toss up games, and it's where I can't help but wonder, Nick, if there is some kind of move coming on the defensive line that isn't a 1-year stopgap. But I don't know, right? Just because
Yeah.
if you do get an impact-ish, like even a minor impact, even just a ripple in the water on defensive line, you should be able to probably squeeze a point out of your defense that you couldn't otherwise. But
Yeah.
that's much easier said than done.
Yeah.
Much easier said than done.
So my only closing thought is this, Robert. People listen to this podcast. If you listen this long, thank you. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Rate and review. But also, we don't say this often. Give us a follow on X or Twitter, whatever you call it now. Okay. He is Robert K. Schmitz. I am at _ Nick Whalen. Nick Whalen, at Nick Whalen. He got it before me. So I have to do the underscore before it. Okay. But give us a follow because we're on there talking ball more than we're even on here, giving you guys a podcast. So if you want to interact with us more or ask questions for this podcast, please do that there.
Please do. We would love it. My only final thought is, Bears fans, let's have fun with this. I mean, the team looks like it is shaping up to be one of the better foundations that the Bears have laid in my lifetime. Does that guarantee success? Of course not. But it's an exciting time. You're undefeated in the offseason. Keep that attitude. This is fun. Are they going to win the Super Bowl? Man, I don't know. Nick, I doubt it, right? Rookie quarterback wins Super Bowl would be one of the biggest stories. It would end up in a Hall of Fame induction speech.
Robert, it sounds like something a generational quarterback would have to do.
I mean, I was about to say, like, I don't want to be all too crazy, but Nick, if we're here in a year from now talking about how the Bears won the Super Bowl, I will probably start immediately talking about Hall of Fame because that's the kind of thing you make the Hall of Fame doing, right? It's the Hester Super Bowl return. The moment Hester did that, you went, this guy is different because he did something literally nobody else did, and it fits. The shoe fits. Why wouldn't you wear it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we don't need to get there. I really hope we don't do a podcast on Caleb's MVP odds. I hope we don't cross all the same usual taboos that we have usually signaled death flags for our young quarterback. And instead, we enjoy the moment, savor it a little bit. Like, this is fun, Bears fans. We're so glad you're here with us. Nick, thank you for taking the time. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know if you did. I love the constructive feedback. We're going to work on pronunciation. I'm going to try to say the word Nick less, and all the other trimmings that go with this. But until next time, Bears fans, bear down, and thank you so much for bearing with us.